Hi, today we have, as part of Careers Week programme, we're very lucky that we have Shirley Forson with us today. And Shirley is a physiotherapy graduate, can't speak today, from the cohort of 2012. But Shirley's had a very interesting career. You might have read her bio already, and I'm going to ask her some more questions so that we can hear a lot more about it. And I've know from reading Shirley's bio that she's done so many different things that are quite different actually, and the way that she's navigated her career is not necessarily what you would expect. So I'm hoping today we're going to be opening up some other ideas for you, for those of you watching, on what's possible working within the NHS with physiotherapy. So to begin with then, Shirley, just to say welcome and thank you for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Thank you. And what would be lovely is if we could start off with you just giving us a bit of a plotted history of your career so far from when you left St George's.
Yeah, I suppose my career actually started from the last placement whilst I was still at George's. My last placement was at King's College Hospital within the elderly rehab team. And I was just very fortunate that I finished my placement and they said, apply for the job. Hopefully you get it. And I was successful. Out of I think it was applicants of 60 people, I was the first. And that was, you never believe that's going to happen. So that was the first step of like, I knew it was meant for me. So I started in 2013, and within 14 months, I had achieved all my Band 5 rotations. They included MSK, respiratory. I was also able to do a specialty rotation over at the Maudsley in mental health, and that was absolutely fascinating. And so then once I became a Band 6 in 2014, I specialised in what we call now the medical pathway. At the time, it was just called elderly rehab. And it covered everything from the emergency department, which we used to call A&E, through to AMU, the elderly rehab units, the acute elderly rehab units. We had an outpatients department called the King's Older Persons Assessment Unit. There was community, and there was also intermediate care, which they now called rapid response. So I was able to complete all of those rotations, and within my last rotation was orthopedics, and an opportunity came up for a Band 7 secondment over at at Guy's and St Thomas's. Mm-hmm. And obviously you don't think you're going to get the job. And also it's a secondment, so you have to ask your manager if there was even any opportunity to have to go for the secondment. And she said, I don't think I'm going to be able to release you, but do you know what? Apply for the job. I will help you with your statement. I will help you with interview prep. Let's see where you are. If you get the job, then I will try and negotiate something with the senior managers. And by chance, I got the job, and she was incredible. She was the first person that I was like, you are an excellent leader, because she didn't say, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm losing a member of staff for a year. She was like, this is fantastic. This is going to be incredible for your development. And she was the first person that really made me know what I wanted to aspire to as a leader. Mm-hmm. As a Band 7. So I went out to Guy's and St Thomas's for the year, and I led a team of 10 physios. And that was an incredible experience for the fact that I was actually the youngest on the team. So I was the lead, but yet I was the youngest person, and most people had at least 10 years experience. And when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to be able to teach and lead these people? And it was actually a really good experience. And it taught me that even though I may have felt like I didn't have enough or know enough, I always had more to teach others, because your experience and someone else's experience is totally different. Mm-hmm. So after that, I thought I was going to stay in that post. So that was the community kind of domiciliary physio post. But the job that I'd always aspired to through my whole career, my manager called and said, it's just become vacant and I want you to apply. And I was like, oh, that's totally unexpected. I thought this was going to be my new career path. I thought that was it. And I remember speaking, you have to speak to your mum sometimes because out of all knowledge. I was like, Mum, what do I do? And she was like, you're going to kick yourself if you don't apply for this job. At least put yourself in the running for the race.
Yes, yeah.
And so that's what I did. And I applied for the job and I was successful. And I worked at King's in the Band 7 team leaders post within the elderly rehab kind of unit. I specialised in the King's Older Persons Outpatients Assessment Unit. And I also managed the acute health and aging unit. So it was like a 7-day quick turnaround unit for the over 65/70s. And in that time, I was able to specialise in something called BPPV, which is a vestibular rehab or vestibular impairment. And that was kind of the next 2 years of my career. And I really, really, really enjoyed it. I actually thought that was going to be me. I was like, oh, I'm here now. That was my aspirations. I think that's going to be all I need. And then the next part of my career was when, you start getting itchy feet. I don't know if you get it. I get the 2-year itch.
Yes, I wouldn't be able to say. I wouldn't possibly be able to. But yes, no. Yeah, I can understand that, yeah. You seem to have got the 2-year itch because you are moving along at a very exciting pace through your career, aren't you? So
every 2 to 2.5 years, I kind of have a change of some sort.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to, and I really credit, she's the deputy head of physio at King's College Hospital. And she's kind of followed my career through. And there was just one day we were talking in the office and she said, I think you've outgrown us. And she was like, what I know you want to do and what you want to aspire to, we physically do not have that role here at King's. And I was like, oh, what does that mean?
Gosh, yes.
And she said,
makes you worry a bit, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And she said, whilst I'd hate to lose you, because obviously they used to call me the King's baby because I'd been there since forever. And they said, whilst we don't want to lose you, we also don't want to stifle your progression. And she said, just start looking around, see what's out there. And so I did for a little while. And then my band 8 at the time was leaving, and they said, oh, apply for that job. But because I had the experience in the community and of leading my own team, I knew I didn't want to stay in the acute anymore. So taking that role or applying for that role would just not have been what I wanted. It would have been what the team wanted for me.
Yes, I see, yes.
And so I didn't apply and they were very upset. But I had to do something for me. And I'm a Christian, and I always say it was by the grace of God that whilst I didn't have a vision of where I wanted to go for myself, by chance I was on NHS jobs one day and I put my postcode in, 10 miles around, admin and clerical, band 8A, and I pressed search. I didn't know what was going to come up, but I just pressed search. And by chance, the post that I'm now in, the operational manager's post, came up. And I read through the JD, I read through the personal spec, and I was like, oh, that's something I could do. And obviously, because you're a physio, it said that you'd be managing a community nursing service. I thought, there's no way I'm going to get it. All I can do is apply for it for interview prep and interview experience. And here I am.
How
was
lucky, yes,
successful.
yeah.
Yeah, I was
Well, not
successful in all
lucky,
those.
but you know what I mean. Just finding the
Yeah,
job on that in that instant on the
yeah.
search. It's amazing, isn't it?
A lot of people just don't believe that's how I found the job. Like,
Yeah.
literally it. But I'm very, very grateful. The role that I'm in now, I manage two services, so a community nursing team and a podiatry service. One is what we call planned care, and one's classed as unplanned care. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Fantastic. So tell us a bit about your role at the moment. Tell us a little bit more about what you're actually doing. And obviously
Yeah,
we've been in rather unusual times at the moment. So
yeah.
how has that affected the role, even though you started it in COVID times, didn't you? So you
Yeah.
don't actually know what it would be like outside of those times.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So the role that I was pitched, obviously, at the interview and that process, because obviously I started in COVID, is, I think, slightly different than they could have even imagined. So at the moment, my day-to-day role is things like people management. So I manage the rotas and sickness and annual leave, etc., etc. I also do things like performance management and sickness management, and so I write a lot of reports, I answer a lot of complaints, I look at incident reporting, and I either do the investigations or I sign them off. I will write reports for assurance, so looking at all the datexes and the patterns that are happening over a 3-month period, and writing the report to summarise what's happening, what does it look like, what have we put in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. Also, because of the COVID period, the team members have had quite a lot of low morale. They're exhausted. And so therefore I've had the opportunity to lead a lot of things like wellbeing workshops, where it just gives people time to speak and express how they're feeling and recognize that they're not the only ones feeling like this. I think that's the one thing in the NHS. We all have this hero complex that we must be strong, we must get through it, but it shouldn't have to be like that.
Yes, no, absolutely.
We're all human at the end of the day. So yeah, it's been a lot of supporting people and listening, and being ready with tissues when tears come.
Wow, okay. So it sounds like quite a lot of responsibility, not least from dealing with complaints and that side of things as well, but you know, from supporting the team at such a difficult time as well.
Yeah.
Um, but so you've spoken about how you work in a busy, varied management role, but what helps you strike a good work-life balance?
Putting in boundaries. I think that's definitely one thing you can take more and more and more on. But sometimes you have to be able to say to your manager or whoever's giving you this work, you know, I can take that task on, but if I take that task on, this task over here is probably going to be done at 50%. Is that something we are happy with? Or would you prefer me to focus on this task?
Yeah, yeah.
And just being able to have that conversation at the beginning just manages the person's expectation and also the expectation on yourself.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The other thing I do is I do a lot of walks and speaking with friends and family. I'm very fortunate, I live in the middle of a park, so even through the times where, you know, you could only meet outside in groups of 6, I was like, everyone come to my park. And that was really nice, because I think a lot of the time with this whole year being locked down, you've just lost those human connections, haven't you? And the friends that you would just normally pop to and say, hi, how are you doing? It's not as easy because everything's through a screen or on a telephone. So trying to maintain those relationships as much as possible has really helped me.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not easy to do, is it? But no, that's great advice. And I think about managing your caseload as well, and being able to say no is an important. And you've described exactly how to negotiate that down as well, which is very helpful. So you've spoken about how you have been told no by various people throughout your career. What
Yep.
what helped you stay positive and continue to work towards your goals despite this?
I think it had to be, I had to make sure I had confidence in my own ability. You know, St. George's equipped me with such an amazing foundation. I think I've spoken about it on my bio before, where, we are sought out and sought after students because of the practical elements of our course. We are people persons straight away.
Yeah.
And therefore we are already set up with an amazing foundation. So just being confident in, I know who I am and where I want to go. Like I said, I'm a Christian, so there's a scripture in the Bible that says, write it down and make it plain. And I literally will write my plans, my 5-year plan. I already know what I want to do in the next 5 years. And I just need to be like, okay, what are the building blocks to achieve this? I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. Perfect, we're here. And just staying focused on yourself, because other people will always have an opinion, and whether it's right or wrong, just remain focused on what you want to achieve.
Okay, so 5-year plan, focus,
Yeah,
and ignore anyone that rains
is a
on
naysayer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay, good. Okay, that's good positive advice, and it's all in the planning, and
All
where
in
you're
the
at.
planning.
Yes,
Exactly.
Okay. We're all about action planning in careers, so that's a good thing.
This is
It's along the same.
Make sure it's smart as well.
Yes, exactly. It's smart actions, please, everybody.
Exactly.
Okay, so thinking about kind of more of the skill set and maybe the characteristics, what are the key characteristics you think someone needs to work in a role like yours?
I think the first thing is kindness and empathy. They go definitely hand in hand. You need to be able to, you call it the open door approach. You need to be ready whenever someone needs to speak, because if they're coming to you at a particular time, it's important to them. So yeah, being kind and understanding that while something may not be affecting you, or something that you've said is just, it was just straightforward. I meant what I said. Sometimes people interpret it differently. So it's about finding the understanding of, can I just check, how did you take that? What did you think I meant? And clarifying that, and then be like, oh, no. Yeah, I really just said this. So in being kind, it means that people receive that a lot more and a lot easier. So that's really important. The other thing is being resilient.
Yeah.
Especially being a manager, you're not always going to, people are not always going to like change, and as you go through your career, you'll find that change management is one of the hardest things to manage ever. And so in trying to achieve something, you have to outline exactly what the goal is of achieving that. And whilst people may not like it at the beginning, they will appreciate it by the end. And just know that as long as it's a service-wide achievement, you're doing the right thing. So being resilient and strong enough to know that not everyone's going to like what you're doing straight away. And I would say being logical. You can't jump all over the place all the time, because that's very hard for people to follow. So having a clear plan before you share things with others, because what you're thinking in here doesn't always come out the right way.
Also, and you want to keep the messaging simple, I suppose, as well, don't you?
Exactly.
Clear, because we're all the same. We all just want clear messages at the end of the day, don't we? Work towards.
Exactly that.
And logical messages, yes.
Yeah.
as much as we can. Not always possible, but that's what we aspire to. Great. Okay, that's lovely. So great tips there. And resilience is something that we've been focusing on a little bit, and we've got, if anybody's interested in reading more about that, it's now considered a skill, resilience, isn't it? So it's actually something that you can, if you feel you don't have it, you can acquire it, is what it skill is. So please, if anybody's worried about their resilience, you can have a look at the resources that are on the website about that. Okay, so do you have any advice? And I mean, you might have mentioned something about this already, but do you have any advice for someone who'd like to move into a similar role to yours?
Yes. Be open-minded. For me to be able to be successful in this role, I had to step away from me being a therapist and understand what the role of a nurse is and what the role of a podiatrist is. It doesn't mean I need to be either of those. I just need to have an understanding of what they do. And also have an understanding that I think therapists are incredible at structure and clinical governance and things like one-to-ones and appraisals, and in-service training is a standard for us. If we don't have it, we get offended. But in worlds like nursing and podiatry, it's not always the same. So going in, you would need to have an understanding of things may be different. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean you're right. It's, okay, what can we do to make this better together as a collective? The other thing is, I'd say when you're looking for jobs, sometimes they will be titled as something else. So my job was actually titled as a nurse when I applied for it. Yeah. And it wasn't until I read the personal spec where it said that actually you could either be NMC, so the nursing medical thing certification, or you could be HCPC registered. And obviously as physios, we are HCPC registered, and therefore that's what's allowed me to apply for the role, and you need to be a clinician. So just looking for other things, always have a look at the JD.
That's very interesting. Yes, gosh. So you did well to persevere with because when you're ploughing through lots of different jobs, it shows it pays to open it up and actually read what they're asking for.
Yeah.
And I suppose what you saw then when you saw the job advertised is that the fact that you had all the skills and experience they were asking for. So it's worth going for it, isn't it? It
exactly.
Kind of, yeah, like you can give it a whirl, even though gosh, because that must be very surprising to people listening that you can go for something that says nurse in the title. Physiotherapy.
Yeah, exactly. And even when I explained it to some of my colleagues and my friends in my last place, they were like, what, how? But it's possible, and it works because I don't need to be the clinician. I'm strictly operational.
Yes.
And I had all those skills from where I was before. So it works.
Yeah, brilliant. No, fantastic. But good advice there to look beyond the label, I suppose.
Exactly that. Look beyond the label.
Yeah. Okay. So thinking about I might come back to the things about your challenges, but I remember you mentioning breaking the glass ceiling in one of your bios that you've written for us. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, of course. So in physiotherapy, obviously your degree is to be a physiotherapist. So you come out of university, you get your band 5 job, you then get your band 6 job, you then get your band 7 job. That is all you do as a physio. You get enough experience to get to the next level. But once you start getting to a band 7 level, obviously in any business, any career, it starts teetering off with the opportunity. So the band 8A jobs become fewer, the 8B jobs become even fewer then, and it just keeps going like that. So once you get to a band 7 level, unless your manager by chance moves on or you're looking for other areas, you kind of get stuck. And that's what creates the glass ceiling. You may be successful and maybe get into the 8A level, but after that, you'll find that a lot of the 8Bs, the Cs and Ds, they can be there for years. So there's just not as much opportunity to move up after that. So I think also as being a physio, you think of yourself as a clinician. So you're like, oh, well, the only jobs you can do is being a clinician. But there's so many opportunities in the NHS where you can step away from just being a clinician to moving over to the kind of corporate management side of things. And that just opens up the possibilities immediately.
Wow.
Okay. So that's exactly what I've been able to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that's what you've done, and that's by virtue of you getting some management leadership experience quite early on.
Yep.
And then being able to find opportunities that take advantage of your transferable skills and the fact that you've got that level of knowledge and experience within the NHS, you know, through the registration. So okay, yeah, so that's possible. So are there any tips to anyone who might be perhaps, or anything that you would like to say about the kind of management areas within the NHS for people that are thinking, yes, I like doing my, you know, whether it's physiotherapy or whatever it might be that they're training to do within health. How can they make that move? What is the kind of advice for getting to that stage where you can have that option open to you? And sorry, that's it. You go.
Yeah. So I would say make sure that you there's always things within your team that are happening from a management level. So even if you're at a band 6, band 7, there will be a junior member of staff that you're probably line managing that has had some sickness, so needs a informal letter written or informal sickness meeting. Or there will be people that have asked for flexible working requests. It's about asking your managers and getting involved. Because once you start getting involved, you start having the experience and you know the formats of how to conduct a meeting, what needs to be said, agenda writing, minute writing, report writing after any of these meetings that you will be conducting. And then once you have the experience and the confidence, it just opens you up to have other opportunities. So your manager will be like, oh, do you know what, you sat in with me the last time, but you actually led that really well. I don't need to be here anymore. And so it's no longer that you're being supported to lead, you are leading. And it's things like that I've always been the type of person who I'm happy to try anything. And so having that kind of characteristic, I suppose that's characteristic in itself, isn't it? Having that type of characteristic meant that my manager was always confident to try something new and give me the opportunity. And when the opportunity is given to you, take it.
Yes.
Because it only adds to your CV or personal statement. Or what we call a physio toolbox.
Yeah, and your own toolbox as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's about courage. I think that goes for every line of work, really.
Yeah,
just
being brave enough. Yeah,
and everything's surmountable and you cope, you know. And I think getting advice from those that know, people generally are very willing to help you grow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. So lastly, Shirley, I think this is my last question. We'll see. What are some of the challenges and the most rewarding things about your role?
I'd say, let me start with the rewarding things. I think it's an incredible opportunity to help people. You know, when we go into jobs in healthcare, it's a vocation. We want to help. We want to support people, and I think that was the biggest kind of tug on my heart when I was going from being a clinician to 100% managerial, because I was like, oh, but my patients, I love my patients. And I just had to change the way I thought about it, because I love people. Going into management just meant I was managing people and still supporting them. So actually, it makes me feel really rewarded, because I'm still helping people. I'm still doing what I wanted to do, of looking after and supporting and developing and making people feel better. So that to me is really, really rewarding. You know, some days you could just speak to someone. It could be lots of tears, lots of tissues, and you walk away and you think, I haven't done anything but listen. But they'll come back to you the next day and they brought you a bunch of flowers or chocolates, because they're like, thanks for listening. That's all I needed. And so that's really, really rewarding. There'll be, you get a lot of compliments from patients, and they send letters and cards, and that's really nice to share with the team all the time. And I work in 2 fantastic teams who are always getting complimented. So even though it's nothing to do with me, it's really nice to hear that my team are getting celebrated for what they deserve. That's really nice. Some of the challenges are, people management can be really, really challenging. And that's why it's important to be resilient. It can be, you have to do things that you don't always like doing. And even though you know you're doing it for the right reasons and for the best for the person, they don't always see it as that. So be prepared for things like that. It can make a tough day. It can make it a tough day, but knowing that, being reassured in yourself that you've done it for the right reason, and that you followed all the policies and you followed all the processes, and therefore that's it. So that can be a real challenge. The other challenge that you'll always find in any NHS service is resources and staffing. There's never enough people. And there's never enough money to pay for the people.
So it's not like job advertised, any jobs advertised, it's not because there's not a need.
Exactly. I think we're all very excited. We've heard about the 10,000 people that have applied for university for this new year, and we're really excited for 3 years' time when you're all graduated. But for right now, that can be a challenge. Yeah, we just have to be persevering and wait for 3 years down the line.
Bye.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's also another challenge, and you're going to hear it all the time. We don't have enough staff, but it's looking at it and saying, okay, we don't have enough staff now. What can we do to make this better? Always looking at the problem and finding a solution, not just staying at the problem.
Yes, that's a lovely note to end on, Shirley. Just making sure that you do something about it and move on.
Yes,
move slowly in the right direction. And
exactly.
That goes for careers, and that goes for just in terms of any problematic situation that you find yourself in, any challenges that you find yourself in.
Exactly.
But anyway, Shirley, it's been so lovely to talk to you, and it's been really interesting and informative, actually, and opened up lots of different ideas and opportunities for not only for me to know about, but also to the students and recent graduates to see what the future might hold for them. So you've been truly inspirational and opened up and so clearly articulated as well.
Thank you.
How to overcome things and how to approach things. You make it sound very straightforward, simple, very calm. So I think I'm inspired.
Oh, thank you. It's not always straightforward, but you get there.
You can articulate that. Well, you just follow the procedures and you make sure you know how to to it, and you give it all of this, like, there's always a way through, and
There's always a way.
and be kind. Solve the problem and be kind, and
Yes,
you can't go too far wrong. Yes,
exactly.
yeah. So no, that's lovely. Thank
you
you
so
much
much for having me, Emma.
Shirley.
No, thank you very much for having me.